Imagine being in the hot seat, like really under pressure in an interview. A journalist digging into your past, challenging your most controversial ideas. That's pretty much the scene we're diving into today.
Absolutely.
We're focusing on, the South African political figure Julius Malema and his vision for the country.
A very ambitious vision, it has to be said.
And for this deep dive, we're working directly from an interview transcript. It's called Julius Malema Shuts Down an Arrogant BBC Journalist, found on the African News Network's YouTube channel.
Right. It's quite a fiery exchange.
Yeah, definitely. So our mission here is to unpack Malema's perspective, his economics, his foreign policy, his provocative way of talking about change, all straight from this interview.
Trying to get to the core of his arguments based on what he actually says.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here, right from the start, is how Malema handles questions. Not just policy, but personal history, too. The journalist really pushed him on past allegations, failed tax returns, accusations of financial stuff.
Stuff he was never actually convicted for, right?
Right.
Some charges apparently weren't even formally brought.
Precisely. And the journalist kept bringing it up.
And Malema's response is pretty direct. He basically calls the questions lazy journalism.
He says it's the mind of a lazy person who doesn't do his work and tells the interviewer they sound like a scratched CD.
He keeps pushing back, saying this was, 15 years ago, 12 years ago?
Yeah, framing it as ancient history. He says things like, I've grown up, fixed that problem.
And emphasizes his current situation, 42-year-old married man with children, someone who's taken responsibility.
It's clear strategy.
So what do you think? Is it just deflection, or is there more going on there?
Oh, it's definitely more than just brushing it off. It's a calculated move. He tries to undermine the journalist, make them seem biased or unprepared. And it plays well with his supporters, framing criticism as just attacks.
Right, controlling the narrative.
Exactly. And then he pivots. He shifts to talking about his political work, building the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters. He boasts about making it the third largest party without the support of white monomial holy capital and the owners of the South African economy.
Okay, that phrase, white monomial holy capital, it sounds very specific. For listeners maybe not familiar with that exact term, what's he getting at?
It's shorthand he often uses. He's referring to what he sees as this concentrated economic power, mainly white-owned, held over from apartheid. He argues it still controls the economy and disadvantages black South Africans. So, building his party without their backing is, for him, a big deal, a sign of independence.
Got it. So understanding how he sees himself, how he pushes back against critics, that's key to figuring out his leadership style.
Absolutely. It sets the context for his more radical policy ideas.
And those ideas really form his economic blueprint. He's big on state ownership.
Very much there.
He points to things already run by the state, like 95% of South Africa is electrified, he says, water access, the SABC.
Yeah, the public broadcaster. He argues South Africans are basically okay with state ownership because they already have it in some areas. He says they're happy with what we're learning it already.
So what's the ideology behind this push for more state control?
Well, his specific proposals are pretty stark. Expropriating land without compensation, nationalizing mines, setting up a state bank, and fighting crime, fire by fire, as he puts it.
Wow, fire by fire.
Yeah. And when the interviewer brings up concerns, like Zimbabwe or Venezuela...
He just dismisses those comparisons.
Pretty much. He says we are owning it already, meaning South Africa's situation is different. The key here, for understanding him, is his reference to Leninism and Marxism. It signals he wants a state-controlled economy, key industries nationalized, empowering the working class against private capital.
So there's a deep ideological commitment.
Exactly. That's why nationalization is so central for him. Though he does add that land expropriation would happen through democratic means and consultation with all South Africans, black and white.
But the journalists push back on the economy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mentioned the rand falling, companies thinking of leaving, foreign investment drying up.
Yes, brought up those very real economic anxieties.
And Malema's response.
He basically blames external factors. He claims the rand's weakness isn't his fault, or even the talk about his policies, but rather irresponsible utterances by the ambassador of the USA.
So blaming the U.S. ambassador for undermining South Africa's sovereignty and hurting the currency.
Exactly. He deflects the economic concerns onto geopolitics. It's a pattern.
Interesting deflection.
And this connects to his admiration for China. He really praises China's model, its vision and the image, he says.
For what specifically?
Economic growth, reducing unemployment, poverty, dealing with crime, building infrastructure. He calls China very progressive, linking it back to Leninism and Marxism.
Where the state plays a central role and the working class control the commanding heights of the economy.
That's his interpretation, yes. It paints a picture of the kind of state control he envisions for South Africa.
Okay, so a very radical domestic vision. But how does he see South Africa globally? What about its alliances?
Well, he emphasizes the BRICS connection. He says South Africa is in alliance with Russia, with India, with Brazil, with China.
Makes sense, given South Africa's membership.
Right. And he says SA is non-aligned in relation to war, but then stresses that Russia remains South Africa's friend.
Okay, friendship is one thing.
But Malema goes further. This is where it gets quite striking. He says he'd personally go beyond the friendship with Russia and would even supply the weapons to Russia.
Supply weapons. That's a big step beyond just friendship or non-alignment.
Huge. And his justification is his anti-imperialism stance. He argues Russia is fighting imperialism, so helping them aligns with EFF policy, pushing back against imperialist agendas.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the journalist confronts him on that, right? Brings up the International Criminal Court wanting Putin for war crimes.
Yeah, a direct challenge.
How does Malema handle that?
He flips it back. He says the ICC should start with Tony Blair, George Bush, Barack Obama, mentioning Blair's apology over Iraq.
So accusing the West of double standards.
Exactly. He frames his support for Russia not as enemy of my enemy, though it sounds like it, but as an anti-imperialist agenda aimed at undermining American dominance.
This raises an important question about what anti-imperialism even means in this context, especially when, as the journalist pointed out, Putin himself seems to have imperial ambitions, like in Ukraine.
A very good point. And Malema's response.
How did he respond?
He kind of sidestepped it, called it a debate for another day.
Oh,
But he did add, we are not for imperialism even if it were to come from Russia. And then he brought China back in, saying progressive forces such as China have also aligned themselves with Putin to try and create an alternative from the imperialist domination.
So positioning Russia and China together as challenging the West, basically papering over any awkward questions about their potential ambitions.
That seems to be the strategy, yes. It's a clear alignment against what he sees as Western hegemony.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to some of his most controversial statements, the ones about revolution. The journalist mentioned that many white South Africans fear him, some saying they'd leave if he gets power.
Yes, that fear is palpable for some.
How does Malema address that? Does he acknowledge it?
He dismisses it, compares it to the fear people had of Nelson Mandela back in 1994. He even mentions houses being abandoned then.
So, drawing a historical parallel.
Exactly. He claims they aren't scared of him specifically, but scared of an independent black man who is not controlled by any white person who is not controlled by London, framing it as fear of genuine black empowerment, not fear of him.
But then there's that quote, the one about killing. The journalist quotes him directly. You must never be scared to kill a revolution demands that at some point there must be killing because killing is part of the Revolutionary Act.
And Malema's response in the interview.
He says absolutely. He owns the statement.
Wow. He doesn't back away from it at all.
No. But then he tries to draw a distinction. What's the distinction he makes?
It's crucial to his argument. He distinguishes between revolution and terrorism. He says if you just go killing a people around you are a terrorist. But, he argues, if you have the support of the majority of your people to engage in war, then that is the revolution.
So majority support legitimizes violence, in his view.
That's the implication. He does clarify, though, that currently the conditions have not dictated that there should be anyone who should go to the bush and engage in war to kill.
A conditional threat, then.
Yes. But he adds that if those conditions arise, the EFF will without hesitation do that. He even invokes past generations who were not scared to take up guns and shoot to kill.
So if revolution might involve killing under certain conditions, how does that square with his repeated claim that his path to power is through the ballot box? Seems contradictory.
It is a tension, but he explains it within his framework. He insists change will come via the ballot box. But the ballot box for him isn't the end goal. It's the means to elect a revolutionary party.
And that party, then?
Unleashes the revolution. That's his phrase. So, winning the election is step one. Step two is using that power to fundamentally change society.
Towards what end goal?
The changing of the system where you radically defeat capitalism and introduce a socialist state. That's the ultimate aim of the revolution he envisions.
But he still keeps that caveat, doesn't he, about defending themselves?
Yes. He adds that when the need arises to defend ourselves through whatever means necessary, we'll do so without hesitation. So the ballot box is the preferred path, the primary strategy.
But the revolutionary option, potentially violent, remains on the table if needed.
That's the message. It really shows the depth of his commitment to his ideology, blending democratic participation with revolutionary theory. Understanding this mix is vital if you want to grasp his approach.
So after this deep dive, you really get a clearer picture of Julius Malema's vision straight from his own mouth in that interview.
Definitely unfiltered.
We've seen how he handles criticism about his past, his detailed plans for a state-run economy, that staunch anti-imperialist foreign policy.
Especially the Russia stance.
Yeah, and his complex, sometimes really jarring views on revolution versus the ballot box.
Yeah.
He believes in elections, but also in revolutionary action if, as he says, conditions demand it.
And you see how it all connects, right? His economic plans, his global alliances, his rhetoric on change. It's not just random policies. It's all part of a single, quite radical ideological framework.
He's not just talking about running a government. He's talking about fundamentally reordering South Africa.
And its place in the world order as he sees it.
So here's something to think about, especially given South Africa's history of massive political change. How might Malema's specific blend, his use of the ballot box, combined with this revolutionary language, actually reshape the country's future?
Yeah, and are there useful historical parallels, maybe beyond the Mandela comparison he himself makes, that could help us understand what such a complex and frankly controversial vision might mean down the line?
Something for you to ponder.